We got a DC breakdown of Campaign 3, Episode 13 of Critical Role. I'm going to keep wrapping through these things. I'm going to start doing these in batches together. After Episode 14, I'm going to do 15, 16, start batching these things together to get caught up so I'm up to speed with these new episodes so I can release them a little closer to the time. Really appreciate the love from you guys down in the comments and me bringing this thing back and starting to do more videos here on the channel, so I appreciate you. In this episode, we're breaking down if it's practicing things and mechanics beforehand. Is that metagaming? How do you run callbacks in your game and bring in references from the past to be able to use in your campaigns, and making PC's decisions actually matter? But first, a word from our sponsor, Alkenner's Almanac of all things. It's the Kickstarter book that I'm writing, but actually I'm finished writing it now, which sounds crazy to say. It is in the final stages of development. Alkenner's Almanac is a homebrew supplement for all of Dungeons and Dragons of all three pillars of the game: combat, social encounters, exploration. And there's actually 8 chapters now that this thing's blown up into. It has mass combat in there now, full overhaul of inspiration systems, the general rules that affect the whole overarching part of the game outside of combat, and full entire chapters on all 3 pillars of the game, and chapters on skill challenges, session 0, death and resurrection. And I really did put too much into this book. It is jam-packed with some homebrew goodness to be able to customize and tweak your games to have the most fun possible. But I'm only able to do one printing run of this for the hardcover books. If you want to get a hardcover copy, links down in the description for the Kickstarter link there. It's a late pre-order thing. You can pick one up for yourself because they are closing in about a month and a half or so until I have to lock in the orders to send off to print the actual books and stuff, which seems exciting to even say. But if you want the PDF, that's always going to be available on the website as soon as that thing's live. And while you're on the website, go ahead and sign up for the newsletter so you'll be alerted when Alkenner's Almanac drops, other things drop. I don't send a lot of emails out, but I do send a lot of coupons, bonus rewards as well. Ooh, I'm excited. Now let's get down to the breakdown. First clip we're breaking down is players practicing something before the actual time between themselves to see and test out what the mechanic's going to be of what Matt asked them to do, so that they can kind of see the behind the scenes of what the mechanics are. Is this metagaming? Is this not metagaming? I don't know. Let's talk about it after the clip goes down. You'll see.
Here, I'm gonna try to use my my mage hand.
Let me get one that's tighter. All right, I'm gonna really put it on my thumb.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm gonna try to use telekinesis to pull it off of his thumb and see if it works.
Love this check from Matt.
Was that obscene? Sorry.
What would you do? What would you ask
If you
for?
don't mind, go ahead and make a charisma check for me.
Charisma?
Time out. If you're surprised by that, you might not be thinking along the same lines here. I immediately knew, as soon as he asked for charisma, she's a sorcerer. That's the sorcerer's spellcasting modifier. So here we go.
Let's go. First roll of the night. Come on.
As it is
set
the
us up.
basis of your arcane power and your innate capability, just roll a d20 and add your charisma modifier.
Jesus.
Mighty Jesus.
Indicator of things.
Feeling tonight.
17.
17.
Nacho cheese.
It's pretty snug on there for a piece of jewelry that's been placed, freshly. So it doesn't have necessarily the tightness of a piece of ring or a bracelet that has been held for an extended period of time where the body begins to shape its way around it.
Does it come off?
But as snug as you have placed it upon yourself, you feel it begin to pull gently on the finger before it does eventually come loose and come off, not in a way that you wouldn't be aware of.
Notice, yeah.
It works.
Interesting information there. So a 17 is not enough to yank it off, so you probably would need a 20 to yank it off, and a 15 is kind of what they're looking for to be able to get an eventual process, but they know it's happening. And then you see what I'm saying? Now this is all inferences that I'm making based on the information that they just gleaned as players from Matt. Is this metagaming? I say no. I say it's not. This is definitely a really creative, cool thing that the players are doing to test out how this thing's working. In the character, if think from the character's point of view, they would practice this. It makes sense for them to practice this. And through practicing it, they would see how difficult it is. And now in the real world, now we're back to us here talking, is that would be something you would know at the table, and the players learning the mechanics of how easy it is would be synonymous to the characters learning about how difficult that was. In the same way in combat, if you roll a 22 to hit and that misses, whoa, that's crazy. So the character's version of that is trying to hit this thing and it not working, whether it's evasive or the armor's just too thick. The player learns it's really hard to deal damage to this thing in the same way that the player learns that from the moment of hearing the armor class of something that's so high and not being able to hit it. They learn it from different things and it's flavored differently, but having players see the mechanics helps them learn and reference and infer what it means in the real world. The game world, sorry. So I absolutely love this, and I love that Matt asked for a charisma check. I do this all the time. I feel like I always ask my spellcasters for a spell check. I call it a spell check. Apparently that's not a rules written thing. Apparently I made that thing up. I don't know. I call and ask for a spell check, which is just your spellcasting modifier. And usually I have it be also your proficiency bonus, because you add your proficiency bonus to things that you are proficient with, and you are proficient at casting spells if you're a spellcaster. So for this specific thing with Laudna, I would, sorry, not Laudna, Imogen, I would have had her add her proficiency bonus. Telekinesis, that's a pretty standard spell. I'm not really sure how often she's used it, so Matt would have a better pulse check on this than I do. But if a player says that they do something that they always do, something that's very much within their magic wheelhouse, I would definitely say make a spell check, add your charisma plus your proficiency bonus. Okay, cool. And that would be the check I have for them. But if they're doing something out the wall or something zany and crazy, I might just say make a charisma check or make a base spellcasting check, which is just your spellcasting modifier with no proficiency bonus. But there you go. Next clip. This clip gave me chills watching it again. So good, using callbacks from years ago. Absolute years ago to be able to bring back into this. And again, if you're not a big fan of Critical Role, you haven't seen this, you didn't watch all of Campaign 1, this is a callback from Campaign 1. They're in Campaign 3, but how can you apply this to your games? There's going to be times where if your players play in the same world, that's going to be very easy for you to do callbacks of some NPC that they found, or some mark that the players made on the world in a previous campaign, a previous whatever. And if this story continues in the same world, so that's very easy for you to do. But if it's in the same campaign, you can still do these callbacks from little things that your players leave in their wake. An NPC that they found, you can have a callback where that NPC shows up somewhere else. I had first thing that just popped in my head right now. I had a group of kids. There was these 3 little kids that the players found in like the first real town that they got into, and they wanted to be fighters, and the players embraced them, and they really they had a training sparring session with them, and they taught them some stuff. And then as we fast forward through downtime, rapid things, months pass and stuff, they find these kids again, and they're actually still working at it, and they see the kids. That's a little callback, and those moments are really, really cool. But this clip is a callback to Campaign 1, where Grog, the Deck of Many Things, if you don't know what the Deck of Many Things is, you're missing out. But the Deck of Many Things has infinite possibilities of amazing and terrible things to happen. So Grog, Travis's character from Campaign 1, I'll point out Travis too if you don't know who that is, but he had some random person draw a deck of cards from the thing, and they became a lord of the quad roads and all this types of stuff, and there's this whole big deal. And they are now, years later in Campaign 3, meeting that NPC. You will see their reaction trickle across the table. It's amazing. Here we go.
So I originally made my fortune in a faraway city in Isilra.
Watch
and
Travis.
Was
This
for
is
a time
Travis.
the Lord of the Quad Roads there. And after deciding that I needed a change of pace, I moved on to the city of Eos
Marish is next.
in Shenandoah,
Watch.
where I currently reside. And
What Matt's saying doesn't even matter. Look at the reaction.
it here.
Marisha, one
It
deck.
is quite lovely.
Wait for it.
It's,
Oh my God.
You know, we haven't been here,
Here
for
comes
very long. We're
Scanlan.
just sort of passing through and exploring, part of the world.
that is amazing. I'm blown away by that. You are spellbound.
Freaking out.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my God, that's so
This city
cool.
is just so full of interesting
Laura
types.
doesn't get it. These 3 don't get it yet.
You know, it's a
And I
long
just
laugh.
love
You
that
know,
on
I
all
just
of this.
saw
I'm even
one
going to
thing.
kind of turn down the sound here. Like all of this is happening, and the players are just freaking out at the table while the other things are going on. Robbie's talking, all this stuff. Wow.
Make a persuasion check.
And there it is. Laura kicks it in, and there it is. And I think Liam gets it too, but maybe he's just slow playing it. So
24.
wow, what a great callback. And that's just the things, like find these things. Dungeon Masters, the note to take away from this is not like, oh, when you're streaming videos and 3 years later play, nothing crazy. You don't have to be too crazy. This is an epic display on a massive stage, right? But for normal game masters at our tables, keep track of the things and loose ends that your players leave behind. It's one of the main things I do in my session. As soon as the session's over and everybody leaves, I write down loose ends. I have a whole section on the bottom of my Dungeon Master sheet that I copy paste carry over to the next one every single time, just to keep track of all these loose ends. And I have a loose end that I'm holding on to from session 1 of this thing. Technically, it's from someone's backstory in session 0. I'm holding on that nugget and just waiting for the right time to play it. And once I do play that thing, there's going to be some mind-blown things happening as well. So keep track of that stuff. Now, speaking of when players make some crazy decisions or cause some chaos and you got to keep track of it, Matt does it again in this episode. Talison's character Ashton has a Nightmare King mask, and there's an NPC coming in. Their name's Valley Dernata. They are coming in and they are looking for this person, and they find this person, which is a loose end from Talison's character's little backstory of what he's doing with this mask, and she's looking for him and she finds all this kind of stuff. So this is another callback tie-in, bringing it back because players and their decisions and the things they do matter, and you're calling them out on it. Here we go.
Well, the first person you see that catches your eye because they're familiar on this opposite side of the dance floor is Vali Dertana.
She made a perception check and notices Valley Dertana.
Oh, Bali.
Uh-oh.
The fucking guy.
Uh-oh. The one you
The
scared?
business merchant.
The one you scared. How's it go?
Yes.
We scared him.
Yes.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Working with Ira.
Now you see them, they're looking past you off to the side, and they've stopped dancing,
Bali know us?
and they're just glancing beyond.
Oh, boy.
You gauge their eye line, and they're looking at the mask.
I am very well covered, by the way.
Ooh, interesting dispute here. This is the great stuff I want to talk about. Sometimes players' perception of what's going on is different than the DM's, and we have a little debate happening right now inside of this little breakdown moment. I am very well hidden, actually. So the player is making a contest for if this person would be able to have seen them or not. This happens a lot whenever DMs say something and the players are actually, wait, no. You know, definitely a healthy exchange right there, but let's see what happens.
Other than the purple, there's nothing else showing.
But you're rocking that.
But you rock
Nightmare
on
King.
the Nightmare King mask.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in. Bring it.
Oh, that's right.
All right.
Totally incognito.
I'm so excited.
Great. Oh, but what's great, and props to the players, props to Travis and Marisha. They were the ones to call out and be like, actually, dude, like you're mad, like you have the mask on, like you said that, you know? So it's great that Matt doesn't have to be the one to do that. That's another thing I didn't even think about this point until it happened and watched it again, is the players are the ones advocating for what is factually true instead of it having to always be the dungeon master versus the player. And now I think it's, oh, but you're wearing the mask, you know, which is fine. And this group, you know, they're best friends. They've done this for years together. But at your table, I would inspire players out there, if you're watching this, players, to advocate for what is actually possibly true, so that you're, you know, and don't always pick a side. You don't have to always pick the dungeon master side. No, just what you think is right. Say what you think is right, and like what your perception of what's going on. No, actually, you have the mask on, and then it's this big funny moment, and it doesn't have to be some standoff between player versus DM. There we go. And you know what else matters? The MVP of this video, the most valuable patron of this video, is Grigsby Silverskin NPC. I'm starting a new thing where I do an MVP for every video from one of my patrons randomly, and I appreciate all the patrons. They're just one of many patrons that help support, make these things possible, what this happens. I would not be able to do 2 videos a week. I wouldn't be able to have the videos I make on the second channel, all the content that I make, the team that I have to make the content we do, Alcander's Almanac, none of that would be possible without my patrons. So thank every single one of you. And stay tuned, because I got a lot of stuff coming, big announcements, all that good stuff. But until next time, stay creative, think outside the box. Peace.